here's what we're going to do for our assignment. I'm going to go ahead and clear this. Here's what the assignment is. You're going to pick some sort of industry, okay? Set up, let's say, at least 5 items that go along with that, okay? It could be products, services, generics, whatever, okay?
You can leave this up.
I will leave this up, okay? And we'll come around and kind of help you. No problem. So then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out what's the vendor going to be called, what are the categories, and what are the items, okay? So basically we're going to be using the PO side to get it in. So we're going to have to go, what are the vendors? Okay, and just to kind of give you an idea as a sample, okay, let's pick something. Mark, throw out a subject, any subject that you like.
I like farming.
Farming, great, okay. So this is going to be our example, okay?
So that's the industry, is farming.
Okay, correct. So that's way above even where we're even playing, okay? So the vendor.
And I'm going to have like
okay, so
multiple vendors.
What kind of things do they do, and maybe we'll figure out what the vendors need to be. Like, what would a farm sell? Let's say, or what would they want to track?
Machinery.
Okay, okay. So I'm just going to kind of brainstorm here down for a second. We might have.
I got 5.
Well, he's already got it figured out.
Okay, what do we got?
I have machinery, I have seeds, fertilizer, fuel, transportation.
Okay, great. Now, of these pieces, are we pulling pieces in? Are we selling it? Are we just trying to track it? We have to figure out what our goal is here, okay? That's great. I think it's awesome that you have this, okay?
Well, you can do it. I can do it 2 ways. I could have like, these could be 5 vendors, or these could be 5 consumables.
Okay, so watch this. Fuel. Are you getting that from just one or from multiple people?
Multiple people.
Okay, immediately that almost says in my mind generic, okay? Okay, fertilizer. Are you getting that from multiple people? The same thing, or are you getting that from?
That's different types from different vendors.
Okay, so that sounds vendor specific, okay? I'm just kind of, this is virtually my pencil and paper. What was that?
And the same way with the seeds and machinery.
Okay, so seeds, are those vendor specific? Like, here's my question. If you get corn seeds, and are you going to put them all into a big giant tub, or are you going to specifically say, no, I got these from Ipaco, and I got these from, Cal Ranch, or are you going to say corn seeds?
No,
They've got to be separate.
Okay, great. So that's vendor specific, okay? Okay.
So is the machinery.
Machinery, what we're going to do on the machinery is I'm going to actually say stock units, okay?
Yeah, that's not good.
This is serialized. And I'll just get rid of inventory because it didn't fit, okay? Transportation.
Transportation that's just like a.
Now, is this their expenses, or are they actually selling or doing something here?
That's like
delivery.
delivery.
So,
Okay.
That's freight.
Okay, so it's kind of their service, basically, if they're taking from where they're producing the thing to where they're taking it, okay? So we're going to call that kind of like a service.
Categories that, when we look at the farming production in Canada, these are the areas of concern that always come up.
Okay, great. So I think that this is awesome. So for our particular little piece of the pie right here,
we're probably looking at seeds, fertilizer, and fuel for our purposes right now.
correct. So these are the guys that could potentially fit into this exercise where we're dealing with POs and eventually to invoices, okay? I wouldn't even touch machinery right now until you got into stock units, which is your serialized units. Okay. So
how are you defining that?
Well, you're not,
Well-
machinery is a tool
okay.
that they're using on the
It's
farm.
new, yeah.
The seeds, fertilizer, and fuel are the ins and outs,
Correct. And
controllables.
some of your machinery, if you were talking just farming, this may end up just being just a balance sheet item as well. Like, hey, I have my, my combine, and I have my this, and I have these implements, and I have
Asset.
those would be assets potentially on your balance sheet, and then you could still have pieces that you're actually, say you had to do some work to it, you could still attribute it, but that gets way into more of the accounting side versus just this general. Where we're at right now is, once again, we're kind of on this bottom echelon, if you will. We're doing what's called operations, okay? Operations.
So you're either bringing stuff in from your suppliers and moving it through your system and sending it out to your customers.
Comes in through suppliers, goes into the ground, comes out of the ground, goes out to the.
Perfect. Yep. We'll have to draw ourselves a little thing, huh? Okay, so let's do this right here. So fuel, what kind of fuels do we have? Let's just say us. We're going to create a vendor called us, whatever your farming entity is, okay? And the category equals fuel. And what are some of the items?
Even like types of fuel?
Yep.
Gasoline,
Straight gas
Diesel.
and diesel.
propane, natural gas. That covers it.
D-I-E-S-E-L?
Correct.
Okay.
Diesel.
Diesel. And what was the other one I didn't hear? Natural?
Gas. Yeah.
Awesome. So check that out. You could easily do this particular assignment in one thing. Create a vendor. And I said us, but basically the name of your organization. Your category would be fuel. And then these would be gas, propane, diesel, natural gas. And are we tracking these? Are we monitoring in and out quantities on all this? But we're making it a generic, correct?
Correct.
Correct. So what this would be is let's just say QTY, we're going to actually track a real quantity instead of unlimited on all of these.
So gallons. Oh.
That's fine. You can set that up. That's actually on the item level that you will actually kind of go in there and say, what's my unit of measurement? Okay. So ideally, if you get in gallons of gas and then you sell it by the gallon, you bring it in by the gallon, you sell it by the gallon. It follows it the whole way through. If you bring it in by the barrel and you sell it by the gallon, then you're going to have a problem because your inventory is going to be slightly off because there's a conversion. You basically need to trick it and say, okay, this much is a barrel, okay, but it actually equates to 50 gallons. So I'm going to so every gallon that I bring, every barrel that I bring in equates to 50 gallons because that's how I want to end up selling it, okay? Then you can roll that through no problem, okay? Does this make sense, kind of what our assignment is? Okay, we're going to just review really quick. Pick an industry, set up at least 5 items. So I'm going to say parts and POs just so you kind of get an idea. And it doesn't mean it's multiple POs, it depends on your vendors, okay? So if I had multiple vendors for all this different stuff, it would be a different PO because they potentially would have to be pulled in, okay? Product, service, or generics. This is how we play in our parts department, okay? It can handle any of these pieces. I'm running out of room, huh? Okay, anyway, that's our parts department. What vendor, what categories, what items? Example, farming, vendors, us, categories, fuel, item, gas, propane, diesel, natural gas. Okay, we kind of did some other stuff, but we're planning it out on paper.
So as he goes in, can I clarify just?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, sure,
so
sure.
as he sets up, he's going to go into his purchase orders,
Mhm.
correct? And the comment you made about the different,
Conversion.
no, I'm not even worried about conversion. Like, yesterday I set the services up as the category, so he's got fuel, but would it realistically be that he would set all 4 of those up on the same
Sure.
PO?
Well,
Probably because
so-
they would be,
it depends on if you're entering midstream or this is brand new. If
Right.
it's brand spanking new, you wouldn't enter any of this until you physically say, wow, I need to buy my first load of gas, and I'm going to store it in my containers. All of a sudden, it would be one item and gas. That's it, okay? So like, if you just start from the ground zero, you just do it as it happens. If we're pretending that we're entering midstream, we're like, oh my goodness, I don't even have these items in my system, but I want to track all 4 of them because I already have them.
Right.
You would basically do kind of like a setup PO, if you will, that kind of like blasts them
So
in.
we're assuming.
We're kind of assuming. Yeah, correct.
Like we did yesterday, that the company's already up and running, which theoretically most people are, so we're
So
stepping
you're
in.
talking one PO then,
And we're
and
building.
with multiple items on it.
Yeah, and he called it a setup PO, which in my head worked for me. We're just setting it up in the system.
Okay, I don't think it like my midstream, but you guys get the idea.
Just because there's not an R.
Put a hyphen.
Oh, STR.
It'll be fine. Yeah.
Nice. I could misspell my name, and it would be like, whatever.
Doesn't matter, we
So,
got the idea.
That's true.
Would you guys like it if I actually went through it and did this little thing so you could see it, and then I could turn you loose on your assignment?
Let's do it, just
Okay.
because I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think we've
Okay,
got to do
great,
it.
no
Shannon
problem.
probably doesn't need it, but I could.
No.
She probably has hers made already while we were talking.
I do need it.
The master of disaster. Huh?
Not
Okay.
even.
So basically, this is going to be a generic item. It does not exist. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to search for gas, just to show you that it doesn't. I'm currently in the Logan Training Play site. I'm going to come up here, and I'm just going to check, just for fun. Part number, GAS. Absolutely nothing. Okay, great. And I'm going to check my vendor. What do we have for a vendor? Mark, what do we want to call this farm supply place or whatever? Mark's Farm?
Mark's gas.
Okay.
Well, it's gotta be more than gas.
No,
because
yeah,
you're
it's gotta be your
supplying
farm.
seeds and all
Well,
that.
yeah, but we're only
Okay.
doing the fuel part of it.
That's okay. That's fine. And just what I wanted to do just for this demo is just kind of show you. I did a vendor search for the word
Mark's
Mark.
Farm.
I'm the vendor?
No, Mark's Farm.
So guess
Yeah,
what?
you're-
If you're doing generics, don't worry about the vendor. You're just creating items so that you can do it. And if we said we're going to get gas from multiple places, guess what? If I get it from Exxon, I'm going to create a PO to Exxon because that's who I owe. And then I'm going to use this generic Mark's gas for XYZ because it's all going to go into a giant container. Okay? It's a giant container. Anytime you're mixing in a bin, a box, or on a shelf, and you can't tell where it came from where, think generic. Okay? If you specifically say, hey, I'm only going to put the Exxon gas here, and I'm only going to put the Chevron gas here, and I'm only going to put, like, that's major organization, then it's perfectly vendor specific. Because in order to get it out, I'd have to pull up to the Chevron pump, or to the Exxon pump, or to the et cetera, okay? But if you're just putting it into the ground and it's in a giant tank, generic, okay?
Most people would probably logically operate generically because they're out there scoping, looking for best prices for product for the bits and pieces that they're bringing in, correct?
That's correct, that's
I mean,
correct.
generic makes the most sense. Give me an example of a specific where you would want to tie it. Give me a business that you would want to tie that and not make it a generic.
Okay, I will give you
I
one.
agree. That's
If there's
exactly
only,
what I was gonna
if
ask.
there's only one supplier, I mean, I understand that.
Yep. I will give you an example, okay? Say you have a bicycle shop and you have specific brand name items, okay? So if I'm going to sell a specialized bicycle tube, that is a brand specific thing compared to, hey, I just need a tube for my 26-inch bike, okay? Oh, great. I can get these from anybody. That's my
Okay,
generic,
but you've
but my
got a
specialized
Cannondale.
bike, like as soon as you start getting into anything that's specialized like that, that's vendor specific potentially, okay? And like there's a liquor store in Denver, and they actually ran all of theirs through generics, okay? So they're getting it from tons of different distributors. They're getting their wines and their beers and all this kind of stuff, but it's all generic. So they basically created their own in-house numbers, and then they're buying it from anybody that they want. But that takes a little bit of planning, okay? Instead of saying, hey, cool, here's the on this water bottle, here's the number of this particular thing, you have to kind of think, oh, water, that's generic. I don't care if I get, this. You have to, it takes a little planning, okay? Another place that's very
So
specific.
when you went into that liquor store, did you plan it on paper or did you do that on the fly as you learned what you were doing?
No, that's called consulting, okay? That's very, very important. And Madeline, you're in business. This is the key. If we started on paper, could you imagine hitting Atlas and just being like, jump? Like, it's so diverse, and it's ready to help you do whatever you want, but if you just start throwing things, it's going to catch whatever you're throwing, but it's going to be like, ugh, ugh, okay, here we go, and now, you know what, this doesn't work, let's do this. We're going to have to kind of go back in and modify some stuff. So if you plan it on paper, just like what we're going to do right here, we're going to be able to fly because we did a little bit of a paper prep.
Well, and we're still, because we're humans, that planning stage for the person that you're chatting with is going to be absolutely critical before you lose them in this part of it. They need to see where you're going with it.
Correct. And here's another thing for vendor specific, okay? We started in the automobile industry and the trailer industry, okay? Well, what we had is there's a vendor for trailer parts. It's called Redneck. It's one of the biggest ones, okay? That's actually the name of the vendor. Okay, so they have their own specific parts. They have a catalog that's this thick. Well, these are just Redneck parts, okay? You're never going to get these parts from anybody else. Okay, they would also buy stuff from the Napa store. Well, guess what? They wanted Napa, they wanted CarQuest because they're technically getting pieces from different spots, okay? Even if it was a similar oil filter, they'd have to figure out, okay, am I getting oil filters from everywhere? Okay, that's generic. Oh, that's Napa specific. Oh, that's CarQuest specific. That's where we started. Our entire industry started in that area where we had to have kind of vendor specific items. Okay? And it's kind of morphed. We're seeing more and more people do generics. Okay? We have a Bowl Pro shop and they do generics. Okay? They're buying from tons of different distributors and all this kind of stuff. But they're getting balls and shoes and all this kind of stuff from whoever has the lowest price, but they're pulling it into a generic. And that's just a physical thought process that you have to do, okay? There are industries that are very, very tight as far as being vendor specific.
Well, and as far as car parts go, that would be vendor specific because I'm going to put this part on this car and it's only that part that applies.
Correct. So it kind of depends on your industry, but a lot of industries will have generics, okay? But even in our planning stage right here, when we were planning,
We allowed for...
we said, oh, seeds might be totally vendor specific, okay? I don't want to mix the IFA seeds with the Cow Ranch seeds, okay? Even though they're corn, they're technically from different batches or lots. And I don't want to just like have different things growing, okay? Well, vendor specific, we're going to track it individually. That's the difference there.
Okay, thank
Okay?
you.
Awesome. So here's our plan. We were in here, I did a quick search for gas. I did a quick search for Mark, just to see like if I even had anything. We're assuming a midstream setup, and so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back. I'm going to go home. I just did some prep steps just to kind of see what's there, and I'm going to go like this. PO, create a new one, and I'm going to go MAR, okay? I'm going to now say, oh, I didn't find anything. I knew that because I had just kind of prepped it. Add the vendor. I'm going to call it Mark's Farm. Let me just change this real quick. I'm just kind of popping through the little field here. Some city, we're going to put him in Utah, 84321. Mark, what's your phone number roughly? 555?
1212.
Ah, okay. I actually hit the wrong button there, sorry.
All fives.
All fives, perfect. Okay, there's his phone number. We fill in whatever else we want. If you had an email or a web address, and we say add the payee. So at this point, I physically have started to hit the database, okay? I have a thing called a vendor now. It's called Mark's Farm, okay? And now, guess what it just did? It actually says, hey, Mark's Farm, guess which page I'm on now? Add edit a PO, because that's where I had told it I was headed, okay? So technically, this right here already has an ID number. If I clicked on it just for fun, just wanted to show you, 30796. Behind the scenes, it assigned that. I'm just going to hit back just to kind of show you where we're at. Right here, we're going to say, I'm going to do this as a live PO, and I'm going to say vendor specific right now because I'm just setting it up. Okay? I'm going to let the date be here. I can choose my location, and I'm going to say setting up fuels. Very simple.
Let me clarify
Yes,
one
go ahead.
thing. You are assuming that Mark's Farm
Was the
is
name of the
bringing
big
bringing gas in and selling
You think
gas.
I'm selling gas on
Okay,
that?
okay,
That's
guess,
okay, no.
guess
For
what?
his
Yep.
purposes, that's what we're assuming.
and
But we're
it depends on
assuming
if you're
gas
trying to
in-
track it, okay?
Yeah.
So check this out. This goes clear to the accounting level. Are you physically tracking it in and out and distributing it to different things, or are you just expensing it off?
He's consuming.
Well,
But for our purposes here, we're assuming that, I'm just clarifying in my head, we're
Co-
assuming
correct.
it's coming in and that we're going to sell it out versus consume it and use it in the creation of a product.
Okay,
Correct?
correct. So if you just wanted to say, you know what, I need to have tons and tons of gas on hand, and I just need to know how much I total paid over the life of however, and I'm going to use it for this, and I'm not going to track any of that, I would call it expense. I wouldn't even go to the PO level.
Right, and that,
Okay.
I mean, and that's, I'm thinking I'm gonna confuse him
Okay.
with this scenario. You're
Okay.
assuming that you're bringing gas in, and that you have sub-farms or sub-farmers who are going to buy from you. That's what you need to imagine.
Yeah, I would imagine that.
Okay, you need to imagine that.
This is just for this example. Basically, if,
Because we're talking about the flow of products, so you're imagining that you're bringing gas into El Dorado, and that you have other farmers out there
That are buying.
that are buying from you, okay?
okay, so
That will simply, because we don't want to get into expenses quite yet.
here's an example. Say you're an airport, okay? Guess what? An airport, what happens? They buy fuel, a pilot comes in, fills up, he's off on his way,
Well,
but they're
El
buying and
Dorado-
selling
His
fuel.
imagination right now, El Dorado, the big farm, could easily sell to sub-farmers who come in and fill up the tanks. That's not an issue.
Sure, sure.
But I wanted him to realize, because he's thinking of it, I know, as an expense
Yeah.
in the creation of the
Of a product, of a different product.
Right.
Correct. So I think it's great that he had 5 categories, bam, 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 but all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, how are we doing this? Like, what it does is it takes a little bit of consulting. All of a sudden it's like, whoa, you know what? Maybe we don't even want to take this down this road. Let's kind of assume sort of like an airport or a giant farm scenario where
But
we're
this
getting
works
gas.
if we're,
and
if
then-
they're a giant farm selling to sub-farmers, and this works beautifully.
Okay.
I just wanted to be sure, because I knew how he was thinking, and I said, okay, my head's screaming at this.
Yeah, yeah,
Right
yeah.
this minute.
Okay,
Sorry about
okay,
that.
so I love it, I love it. Let's actually add that to our scenario.
No, I
okay?
have to say this is really good, because when I went to class before, I wrote down all the things that I was going to do. And I was struggling with the same thing, Mark, so this is a good for me to go through this too, because I'm thinking, oh, some of these are going to be things I'm going to take in and just consume, expenses. Some of these are things I'm actually going to have to inventory because I'm going to sell it out the other side.
Well, and I see that this is part of that, like you say, that consulting process where whoever you're
Right.
working with,
That's what
you
you
gotta
do.
figure out what it is they do.
Yeah,
because you're-
yeah,
You know, you think you know, but sometimes we're a little blind.
yeah.
And there will be a point, some of this gas theoretically will come in, and when we get into the accounting side of it, some of the gas will be used as the consumable for creating the product, and that will be an expense then.
Right,
But
an expense.
for our purposes right now,
Correct,
it's
so,
coming in and we're selling it to sub-farmers.
okay, we're gonna kind of almost pretend like an airport type scenario,
Absolutely.
okay? How do you spell scenario?
E-N-A-R-I-O.
S-C-E-N-A-R-I-O. Scenario. Okay. Is that how you spell?
It is.
Close enough.
Okay, anyway, so thank you very much for clarifying. That helped out a ton, okay? So we are going to pretend that we're purchasing it, and we're going to turn around and sell it, okay? Or distributor or something to that effect, okay? So where we're headed is vendors, categories, and fuels. Okay, so if I wanted to actually do some prep, I already started to kind of create a PO. Nothing's happened yet, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm even like, you know what? I could go do that right now in line and make it really easy. Just do that beforehand. Okay, so that's where I'm going to actually go. I'm going to switch gears. We already have Mark's vendor in there. Okay, this PO hasn't done anything. It hasn't hit. It doesn't exist. It's just nothing's been created here. So watch this. I'm going to go to the parts homepage. I'm going to go home, parts and general inventory. I have to have the admin permission, and I'm going to set up this category. Fuel. Okay? Add the category. Bloop. There it is. It technically got an ID behind the scenes. Okay? As I mouse over it, you can see it in my status bar down below. It's 2899. Okay? That's just prep. I'm going to go right back here, and I already know Mark's is in here. Watch this. Basically, because I'm setting up some of these pieces, my flow is going to alter. If I were using it, this is how I would do it. Instead of going clear back to the home page, and then to the PO home page, and then starting a new PO, and then searching for the vendor, I'm going to cut out 4 steps and say, I know the vendor's in there.
So
Vendor
what
mark,
we did
go.
yesterday was that process. That's how I built mine. I mean, when I got lost, I went home, I went to the PO, okay, that's the process. But you're just saying, let's go straight, we know what we need.
Okay, so I'm currently on the part categories, and I'm not going to try to, let me show you how many steps it would take if you did it a traditional way, okay? I was proposing that we use this quick search piece right here, okay? Let's go right here. I'm going to come back to this page just to kind of show you the difference in steps, okay?
Okay.
The traditional way is this. Somehow get home. It doesn't matter. Somehow get to POs. Somehow say create new. Somehow type in MAR, okay? See how it's saying vendor and mark? Guess what I was going to do up here? I was going to skip all of those other steps.
Okay.
See how it returned this little piece right here? Watch. I'm going to totally skip that for a second. We're going to go home. I was in the parts category. I was in the add edit parts thing. So I'm totally separate. I'm now in add edit part categories. And I said, heck, I know that I'm going to go like this. Vendor, MAR, okay? I'm at the exact same page I would have been if I took those other 4 steps. PO home page, create new, select the vendor. I used a quick search and I just jumped 5 steps.
But you still had, but you had to put the stuff in there first.
We've
You had to put it in the long way first, and now that it's in there, and you know it's in there, now you can say, hey, I don't have to go through all that, I'll just jump to it.
Correct, correct. So if it wasn't there, I could do a search here to kind of go, hey, I didn't find it. Like if I were to search for Madeline right here, M-A-D, oh, I added an extra little slash there. It didn't find anything. I could easily just add a new vendor right here, okay? That's using the quick search versus the traditional. And remember, the quick search is almost like a virtual transport. You could jump to those different little levels. As long as you know where you're playing, it's like, imagine being in the store and you're on aisle 13 and you know that produce is in the back right corner. Imagine if you could teleport yourself to produce, okay? That's called the quick search.